Please don't forget, I'm just practicing to be a poet. Not qualified as yet, but have no fear, I'm gonna get there. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectation. Neither are you in to live up to mine. I don't owe no one, no obligation. No one owes me none, so everything is fine, fine. I said I am that I am. I am, I am, I am. I am that I am. I am, I am, I am. I am that I am. I am, I am, I am. I am that I am. I am, I am, I am. Serious business. There is a time for everything, and for everything there is a season. So man and man must reason. So I think it's prime time that we address some more issues. Simple information I will use. No rocket science to get you confused. So relax your mind, make sure everything is fine, while I take you down a poetic line. Trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. I remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask, you sure is that you wanna say? Cause you sounded so good to believe. And deception is a powerful thing when you lose your rightful thinking. So we voted for the bling. But you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. Yellow, yellow all the way is what everybody say. Cell phone ring, man answering. Yellow, yellow, no hello. Teeth get yellow, house get yellow, bus get yellow, man get yellow, even green get yellow, and so says 11-4. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. Old school parables say you know what you have, but you don't know what you go get. So cherish what you have to diminish regret. But what on earth lasts forever? Not even things created by the great Jehovah. So the green grass ceased to grow to allow the yellow vibes to flow. But boy, one song I sing, one bell a ring. If we didn't know, we'd never know yellow would have treated us so. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. They began with the blame game, giving NNP more fame. Past administration, the cause of frustration. Past administration, chief of corruption. Then to economic recession, we can't give you attention. Economic recession, the cause of poverty in the land. Economic recession, no employment for the ordinary man. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. All your projects are stuck in a pipeline, but when asked, how is the country going? Oh, fine. We are looking into it. Never mind. Only projects in pipeline. No water to cool down the yellow temperature. When will they start? Please answer that. Oh, soon. Maybe by the next full moon. Although things are turning at a very slow pace, we now run no race. 5 years is a lot of space. It's just a few hungry people in a place, and a few disgruntled green people with their vexed face. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain, you now refrain. Busy governing, busy managing, busy politicking, busy neglecting, busy inflicting poverty and hunger throughout Grenada. 1,000 Frenchmen can never be wrong, but you hold your yellow conviction strong, strong, strong. So why not send them advisors home? They're sucking money like water in foam. And rehire the Imanis, less stress on the economy. You are Manchester, hold up the country. You didn't see us down by the brewery when they send SSU to between. Trick us with campaign promises. We won't say your tease, that's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease this strain. But you now refrain, you now refrain. So we've heard about your internal division, but some can't digest that one. Remember the man say he's an asset to the party? And will we vote you without him? You left him with Glenn alone. Maybe they cloned. And however, I foresee a pretensive unity that will mislead a lot just before the next ballot. But you guys will have to come real good, cause it's a long time Grenada ain't eating food. You think politician good? Trick us with campaign promises. We won't stay at ease, that's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain. But you now refrain, you now refrain. You remember in the Bible God had a plan for Jonah to restore Nineveh? But who will restore Grenada? Is it the same Jonah? Lots of doubt, so I ain't running up my mouth. And I ain't counting no chicken before the hatch. Politicians sometimes form a crooked batch. After they get the vote, they now sing one note. But here comes Fort Judy and Nancy Payne, with $1 million house and brand new car on the scene, while our hungry belly's still grumbling. And you trick us with campaign promises. We won't stay at ease, that's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain. But you now refrain. So yellow people say, next election not me stain that finger. Cause after we say enough from Jonah, here comes still with more pressure and hunger. And from the mouth of Grenada, only one thing I utter: the Congress neglect us, the Congress fail us. And I could never understand the distribution of the wealth. So drink your bush home if you want good health. And for real, we appreciate the free barrel, but they only come in December. So what we are do from January to November? Suck salt and drink Nawasa water. When you trick us with campaign promises.
Good night to you, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Once again, it is time for Talking Points. 11 minutes, wow, after 8 o'clock tonight.
Refrain, you now refrain.
Yeah, just solving a little technical issue so we can bring our guest in.
It can never be about change again.
So please abide with me tonight, yeah?
To vote for NDC in Japanese or Chinese.
Yeah, we have a lot to speak about tonight. And, you know, tomorrow, yeah, there's going to be that parliament sitting.
As in the days of NNP, or else funeral for NDC. Whatever, Grenada still belongs to we. Although enough things affect us negatively, we are still blessed by the Almighty.
So, yeah, let me just run some music here while I make sure we have, yeah, you know, technology as usual. Something does always happen at the last minute that has throw everything off. Yeah, and that's what's going on right now. Something happened at the last minute that just kind of trying to throw everything off. So let me take this from the top here while I solve that problem. Should take me about 5-10 minutes just to get that, well, at least to get that problem solved. And we're going to start the program, yeah?
Please don't forget, I'm just practicing to be a poet. Not qualified as yet, but have no fear, I'm gonna get there. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectation. Neither are you in to live up to mine. I don't owe no one, no obligation. No one owes me none, so everything is fine, fine. I said I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. Serious business. There is a time for everything, and for everything there is a season. So man and man must reason. So I think it's prime time that we address some more issues. Simple information I will use. No rocket science to get you confused. So relax your mind, make sure everything is fine while I take you down a poetic line. Trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. I remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask, you sure is that you wanna say? Cause you sounded so good to believe. And deception is a powerful thing when you lose your rightful thinking. So we voted for the bling. But you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. Yellow, yellow, all the way is what.
Saying a special good night to all of you joining us via YouTube, all of you joining us via Facebook.
House gets yellow, bus gets yellow, man gets yellow, even green gets yellow, and so says 11-4. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. Old school parables say you know what you have, but you don't know what you go get. So cherish what you have to diminish regret. But what on earth lasts forever? Not even things created by the great Jehovah. So the green grass ceased to grow to allow the yellow vibes to flow. But boy, one song I sing, one bell a ring. If we didn't know, we'd never know yellow would have treated us so. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. They began with the blame game, giving NNP more fame. Past administration, the cause of frustration. Past administration, chief of corruption. Then to economic recession, we can't give you attention. Economic recession, the cause of poverty in the land. Economic recession, no employment for the ordinary man. When you trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. All your projects are stuck in a pipeline. But when asked, how is the country going? Oh, fine. We are looking into it. Never mind. Only projects in pipeline. No water to cool down the yellow temperature. When will they start? Please answer that. Oh, soon. Maybe by the next full moon. Although things are turning at a very slow pace, we now run no race. 5 years is a lot of space. It's just a few hungry people in a place and a few disgruntled green people with their vexed face. When you trick us with campaign promises.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm also having a problem connecting with Facebook and with YouTube to see the comments tonight.
You now refrain. Busy governing, busy managing, busy politics.
So it's not that I'm ignoring you all.
Busy inflicting poverty and hunger.
It's just that how I have to operate for the next, while there, I can't access it yet.
Conviction strong.
I'm trying my best.
So why not send them advisors home?
Again. So I decided want to give trouble tonight.
That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. So we've heard about your internal division, but some can't digest that one. Remember the man say he's an asset to the party? And will we vote you without him? You left him with Glenn alone. Maybe they're cloned. And however, I foresee a pretensive unity that will mislead a lot just before the next ballot. But you guys will have to come real good, cause it's a long time grenade I need to food. You think politician good? Trick us with campaign promises, we won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. You now refrain. You remember in the Bible, God had a plan for Jonah to restore Nineveh. But who will restore Grenada? Is it the same Jonah? Lots of doubt, so I'm running up my mouth. And I ain't counting no chicken before the hatch.
And tonight, dear, March the 13th, we know what happened many, many years ago on this date.
One note, but here comes foot.
You know, let me play one for all the old soldiers out there. Yeah, let me play one for you all, man. Yeah.
Rupert march to Humphrey House, forward march. Alistair march against oppression, forward march. Now Grenadians of cultivation, end of misery and oppression. So we build Grenada full with our sword. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. March to God for federation, forward march. We all fight for liberation, forward march. Now Grenadians of cultivation, end of misery and oppression. So we fill Grenada full with our song. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. We have fought colonialism, forward march. We will fight imperialism, forward march. Now Grenadians of cultivation, end of misery and oppression. So we build Grenada full with our song. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. We the workers fight for justice, forward march. In this struggle we are united, forward march. For now the day of cultivation, we end corruption and oppression. And we build Grenada with these very hands. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. Forward march, forward march. Forward march against imperialism. Forward!
March 13 of 79, a most historic freedom time. The people of Grenada rose with dignity, rose up from oppression, rose up from iniquity and shame, from the darkness of desecration, shaking of paralysis and corruption, tyranny, violence and subjugation, to shine out before the Caribbean and strike terror into repressive regime and scrupulous politicians, and now trembling in their hands. Stand up, Grenada, stand up again, Grenadian. Don't let nobody come in and dictate your course of action. All of them who oppose your revolution are political bandits just like you in their own island. Fight for your right, protect what you have. You fought a good fight. Protect what you have. Don't give in a single inch. Don't retreat, not even a pinch. Don't compromise your revolution. For those scandalous TV versus political scams in the Caribbean. No way, never right. No way. Some talk of legality, constitutionality, but only to expose the hypocrisy. For if you examine the state of affairs in their land, you will find human rights violations, total disregard for the constitution, complex political bullshit. action. All of them want force your revolution. A political bandits just like they're in their own island. Fight for your rights. Protect what you have. You fought a good fight now. Protect what you have. Don't give in a single inch. Don't retreat, not even a pinch. Don't compromise your revolution. For those scandal of freaking oppressive political scams in the Caribbean. No way, never rise. No way. God bless you, Grenada. May your freedom be blessed with longevity and prosperous your economy. Make it grant your leaders wisdom, endurance, and courage to go on. For your road will be long and rugged. Many other problems to be confronted. God against corruption being defeated. May that rude awakening never live on. Be an example to tyrant in other land. No power, no weapon weak can extinguish a people's will to be free. Stand up, Grenada. Stand up again, Grenadian. Don't let nobody come in and dictate your course of action. All of them want force your revolution. A political bandits just like they're in their own island. Fight for your rights. Protect what you have. You fought a good fight. Protect what you have. Don't give in a single inch. Don't retreat, not even a pinch. Don't compromise your revolution. For those scandal of keeping up with these political scams in the Caribbean. No way, never rise. No way.
Yeah, I've been trying my very best to try and connect, but you know, technology, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to try to reach our guests via WhatsApp. I was trying to bring them on via Zoom. Really wanted to bring them on via Zoom, but going to try to bring them on via WhatsApp. But in the interim, yeah, the New National Party have issued a press release today in relation to the issue of the data protection bill. And let me just read that one for you quickly. Let me just pull it up here and let me just read that one quickly for you. All right. The New National Party hereby calls on the government to withdraw the proposed data protection legislation and not to attempt to reintroduce it until consultation with all sectors of the Grenadian population is held in relation to the provisions. The New National Party believes the adequate protection of personal data and the implementation of measures. Let me just make sure it's the right one that I am reading, because I know there was, let me just make sure here. Yeah, you know, it's one of those nights tonight. You know, when everything kind of off, yeah, it's one of those nights tonight. So let me just make sure I have everything, the correct one. Yeah.
March 13 of 79, a most historic freedom time. The people have relay rose with dignity, rose up from oppression, rose up from iniquity and shame. From the darkness of desecration, shaking of paralysis and corruption, tyranny, violence and subjugation. To shine out before the Caribbean and strike terror into repressive regime and scrupulous politicians. And now trembling in their pants, stand up, Grenadian. Stand up again, Grenadian. Don't let nobody come in and dictate your course of action. All of them who oppose your revolution are political bandits just like you in their own island. Fight for your rights. Protect what you have. You fought a good fight. Protect what you have. Don't give in a single inch. Don't retreat, not even a pinch. Don't compromise your revolution. For the scandalous TV versus political scams in the Caribbean. No way, never right. No way. Some talk of legality, constitutionality, but only to expose the hypocrisy. But if you examine the state of affairs in their land, you will find human rights violations, total disregard for the constitution, complete political persecution, and a wave of sanction violence.
Yeah, my main machine is just giving real problems tonight.
Just like the man who's one, stand up, Grenadian. Stand up again, Grenadian. Don't let nobody come in and dictate your course of action. All of them will oppose your revolution. And political bandits just like you in their own island. Fight for your right.
Right, so let me read the press release for you. The new National Party hereby calls on government to withdraw the proposed data protection legislation and not to attempt to reintroduce it until consultation with all sectors of the Grenadian population is held in relation to its provisions. The NNP believes the adequate protection of personal data and the implementation of measures relating to the data security are vital in any modern democratic society. Whilst data protection legislation is desirable and necessary, a draft bill that does not consider and take into account fundamental aspects is likely to cause harm rather than achieve its objectives. The lack of consultation and the failure to allow key stakeholder groups, including the religious community, the Bar Association, trade unions, civil society, and the business community to provide an input on the Data Protection Bill 2023 has left the new National Party no option but to object to its tabling in Parliament. By way of background, the OECS circulated the initial draft legislation on the premise that a consultative process would be held by member states. The far-reaching nature of the Data Protection Bill, which will govern the protection, access to, and use of personal data and sensitive personal data such as medical information, means the individual rights must be carefully safeguarded. The adequate safeguarding of personal data affects the way in which information is held by most institutions, our banks, hotels, medical institutions, schools, and extends to micro and small business operators. Authorizing the access and use of the data must not be potentially open to politicians or be otherwise subject to abuse. The new National Party therefore anticipates the holding of these consultations, which we are committed to participating along with other stakeholders and have already committed the resources necessary to do so. And that is a release from the new National Party.
They say when you don't have good food, you must take in front. So this is my Kaiso for the Masgrad 2023. Make sure all come out and support me. No politics, just Kaiso. Let's go. There is no place in the world like Grenada. Its people are so unique, so fabulous. They take politics real serious. You can't tell a man nothing wrong about his party. He'll deal with you so seriously, and from there on, you are his enemy. But as man, I must open my big mouth to lament on some things you know about. So the bother come attack me, don't waste your time on a old jungle like me. Pie in the sky, promises and mama guy. Voters say their expectations were too high. Like the old proverb from way back long, you want to be wrong and strong. Some people bawling with their mouth closed. How they do that, only God knows. Man who could talk, they bawling with their jaws locked.
Yeah, just one of those nights when nothing seems to be working properly, huh?
She's dying inside slowly, but she don't mind once it's NDC killing she. She say we had enough under Claudius, so nothing wrong if baby Jesus.
And we have our guest online with us. Good night, sir. Hello? Yes, we have our guest online with us, just making sure that they settle properly. So we are speaking to Mr. Chester Humphrey. And let me just make sure. Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. 1 second.
Oh, okay. Yes, and we're just giving him a chance to settle himself so that we can start our conversation tonight. And quite a lot to speak about. Yeah, quite a bit to speak about tonight.
We have spoken for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since we've spoken on here, probably about 3 years or so.
Well, yeah, because COVID and all of that intervened.
But I must say it's wonderful to have you on, and especially on March the 13th.
I'm not seeing anything, you know.
No. You won't. We're just speaking. You wouldn't see me.
Oh.
Yeah, but you can go ahead. The listeners are hearing you.
Because I was trying to do this off my laptop.
Oh, okay. Yes, I understand. And the listeners are saying good night to you. They are listening. They are hearing you. So while they may not be seeing you, they're hearing you.
All right. Well, this is quite doing this thing off my phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a video isn't possible.
No, not at this moment with the system that we have in place. We can't do the WhatsApp video, and the Zoom is giving some problems tonight. So that's why we had to revert to taking a call instead of doing a video. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at your pleasure. I mean, let me say, Senator Scott. It's been quite a while since I've been on your program. There have been so many major intervening events. You know, we had COVID, and that threw a spanner in the works of everything. Excuse me. And then after that, of course, we ran into the general elections. Mm-hmm. And that was another age. And then the election upset. And we are now is it 9 months? Because we know in March, April, May, June. Yeah, 9 months.
We're heading to 10.
9 months since on the 23rd, I think we'll make it 9, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, since we unfortunately lost our hold on state power. But we can be comforted by the fact that we have been in this place before.
Of course.
And in short order, we have come back, although the situations are not quite a mirror image of each other, because there are very significant elements of difference, which I guess will require another program and another series of analyses to do.
Yes, and
Yeah, so here we are.
I am thinking of a Friday night program because folks have been calling for it. And if you're up for it this Friday, whatever we don't get through tonight, we will do on Friday. I will promise you that. Oh boy. And for some reason, I have lost Senator Humphrey. Let me try to call him directly then. So let me try to give a direct call.
Them Haitian start. No regards for humanity. Baby Jesus totally lost his sanctity. All you go come here and make things worse. Put more pressure on the nation's purse. So Haiti, I'm sorry. They didn't want you in the yellow country. Let's go. I really had fun writing this high so.
All right. So I have got back Senator Humphrey. Good night again, sir. When I tell you it's one of those nights, huh?
That may as well be the case. He doesn't change the price of rice and sugar. And then we get the bag of licks, who the hell know where they go? Maybe by the Baptist man for Shango. But they have a great history of returning with landslide victory. But I could see they're making preparation, even though they don't have in convention. So forget NNP and govern the place, cause too much tears run down people's face. Falling with their mouth closed. How they do that, only God knows. Man who could talk, they balling with their jaws locked. I thought only dummies used to do that. A lady told me she's done.
Yes, folks, so we do have Senator Humphrey back with us. Again, Senator Humphrey, we do apologize for the technical difficulties tonight. Hello?
Yeah, but I am not hearing you very well.
And
Wow.
I'm wondering why that is so.
Complicated.
Oh, boy. I don't know why that
No?
is so. You're still not hearing me very well.
No, I can barely hear you. I've switched to put on a headphone to see if that will improve the situation.
Usually usually headphones cause a bit of problem in situations like this with calls to the station.
Yeah, well, I could hardly hear what you're saying.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Then there's only one more thing I can do is to try and call a direct line.
Well, let me just say, call me back on WhatsApp and see what's possible now.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Call me back on my 45 number and let's see what happens there.
Okay, no problem. Let's try that. Yes, the technology.
No different to talk your supporters on the attack when they say he's that. A man told Shaggy that he worked so hard to build the party, now they treating him real bad. He told PM that he's not blind, he ain't taking no 6 for no 9. Putting more money in people's pocket was your brainchild. Please don't forget it. There can be no transformation without increased remuneration. Inflation bothering 7%. So in the near future we'll need a godsend. Our big rescue mission. Again, NNP may be the one. Now condoms get so cheap. Man could buy a whole heap, but to buy sugar, electricity, and water you need $5,000. Was that cutlass economics, unthoughtful and spiteful tricks? Or maybe a financial advisor never understood cents and dollars? jaws locked. I thought only dummies used to do that. Grenville vendors say nothing ain't selling. Your supporters say stop the damn complaining. What all you want hustlers to do? Maybe all with.
Well, I think I've tried possibly everything that I can try tonight, and I don't know why the system is giving the problems that it is giving tonight.
More accountability and transparency.
I may just have to abandon our guest for tonight and attempt to bring him on tomorrow night instead.
Confidentiality. We know we ain't perfect, so don't pressure we. What goes around comes back around.
Yes, so I would like to apologize to Senator Humphrey and to all of the listeners tonight, yeah?
What happened up there?
Means I'm going to have to spend the day inside here tomorrow.
We've lost 73 million. They blame NNP for slow him.
But I may have to abandon. I'll try one more time. I'm going to try one more time. Yeah, because oh man. Going to try one more time and see if it works. But let me try that. Yeah.
If you don't vote for the NDC, you don't get in no barrel and no US money. Now some people in the diaspora turn deaf ear to the pressure we under. Now
Come on, you all know better than to call at this point in time when I'm trying to connect with a caller.
neglect their families. Everything cheap in America. Send more barrels not only in December. So just complain and do like Andy. He have a big ministry already, but still want to kick out Larry Barry from a small thing as general secretary. So brother Andy, stop being greedy. Larry has been a stalwart of the party. 8 months ago we got the mandate.
Yeah, well, we will have to just continue with the program for tonight. So, of course, tomorrow at the Parliament, the Data Protection Bill will be presented by the NDC administration. We have spoken about this bill during last week. We've told you, the listeners and viewers of Talking Points, of some of the areas of concern in relation to that bill. And don't think, because a lot of people who might be listening to this program think that the bill is only about people like me, you know. No, it's a law. So at any point in time, it can be used on you. So don't think it's just, oh, they do that for Sheldon. No, I ain't that important. It is for all of us. And there are certain powers, for instance, under that bill that are being given to the minister, who in this case is the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security. There are other aspects that cause some concern. For instance, under Section 33, where they're saying basically that they can enter your home after they enter your house, right? That anything they find inside there, that you have to answer. Let me tell you all something. That is the dumbest, most stupid piece added into a legislation that I personally have ever seen. Because you can't tell me I have to answer you and incriminate myself. Anywhere in the democratic world, anywhere on planet Earth, and there are different forms of democracy, so anywhere on planet Earth, you would know that you have a right not to incriminate yourself. So you don't have to answer anything. But this act has put into it that when they come into your home, any question they ask you, you have to answer. That song, is it making sense to you? You have a right to not incriminate yourself. That's why in the US they speak of your Miranda rights. It dates back to a case in the 1970s and so, where you are told by the officers what your rights are, including the right to remain silent. So no law could come in and saying that you don't have to, you can't remain silent. You have to say, well, that is my computer, or this is the password to the computer, and you have to answer any question. So you mean that a government and a cabinet headed by a lawyer who has their labor representative, labor minister who is also a lawyer, and a lawyer who is friends with many other lawyers, who prides themselves on their legal knowledge, doesn't understand that you cannot force a person to incriminate themselves. And also, they're saying under that same section 33, we showed you last week, we told you about it last week. Let me see if I can pull it up. That same section of that law, they're also telling you, and I'm trying to find it here, they're also telling you that you, let me see, I'm looking for the exact section in relation to that section 33, and for some reason, yeah, again, another thing again that just disappeared. Oh, here it is. Yeah. They're telling you under that section 33, that anybody found on your property had to answer questions too. So it don't matter what property, and it could be a business place, your place of business, if you're a business person, or your place of work, that they have decided that they're coming to search, and anybody that's there, anybody that is there, that individual has to answer any question they ask them to. You find that song like something sensible and fair? You find like that song does something that is constitutional, that protects your constitutional, guarantees your constitutional rights? Section E there, to require any person on the premises to provide an explanation of any document or other material found on the premises. So in other words, they raid your home because Joan say that you've got her medical documents in your place, and you are the one that been spreading all sorts of stuff on the internet about their information. So these people have decided that they're going to raid your home. Your grandmother is there, and these individuals are saying that she has to provide an answer to why those documents, if they find any documents, to why those documents are in your possession or on the property. That your children, no matter their age, have to provide an answer as to why what is there is there. Let's go to the phone line. Hello, good night. Hello? Hello, good night.
Yeah, hello, Sheldon.
Hi, yes, sir. You're hearing me better now?
Yeah,
Or the same
I'm
way?
hearing you better now, but I have to use the headphone. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's like everything just was going wrong tonight. I was just speaking about I was speaking in the interim about the data protection bill and some of the things that are inside there, and just letting people know, for instance, that the officers can come, and when they come to your home, that you must answer. I mean, you're a person that has been involved in Parliament since the 1980s, and you've been involved in, I think, I can't think of anyone else that brought a bill when they were not a member of government and had that bill successfully passed. I believe you did that.
Well, that's correct, yes.
I can't think of any other parliamentarian that has been able to do that. Not a member of the government, introduce a bill and get the bill passed. Have you ever heard of anything like this, though? That anybody's on the premises has to answer as to what is there?
Well, I have not studied the bill, but I've tried to distill what has been said in the news and in the newspaper, which is always a very challenging and difficult task, because quite often what's reported in the newspapers are downright inaccurate, as the level of journalism is much, much desired. I did not listen on to the discussions with Dr. Francis Alexis, and of course, he will be a critical source of analysis and information on the law, especially our fundamental law, the Constitution. But I did hear him in the news make reference to some significant areas in the draft legislation, which does border upon infringement of your fundamental rights. Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, Parliament can pass any law that it wishes, as the as the legislature, it can pass any law. But having done so, it is the courts to interpret the law and to apply the law. And one always has recourse to the Constitutional Court. And I have tremendous amount of respect for Dr. Alexis. And if he lays out that there are issues, bet your bottom dollar, so to speak, that they are, it will be wise for the government not to proceed at this point, but probably just have the bill for the first reading, because such a very fundamental, such a very wide-ranging bit of legislation, which touches on certain fundamental principles of rights guaranteed in fundamental rights guaranteed in the Constitution, must require, if the government is politically sensitive and sensible, to at least engage the wider public in discussions. I mean, you have the Bar Association, you have independent individual lawyers. As I say, Dr. Francis Alexis is a source of a reservoir of wealth on the law, and he has a depth of intellectual capacity on whole matters of jurisprudence that his opinions ought not to be lightly ignored. So I would think that tomorrow, really, the bill should just be left for its first reading and then open it up for debate. I would certainly like to be part of a discussion or to hear more. I didn't listen to the Bub report, but I would certainly love to hear discussions on it. At our executive level, we have Dr. Larry Joseph, who is a PhD in law, and I would certainly like to hear his 2 pence in terms of his perspective on what that bill does and how it may or may not infringe. Because Dr. Alexis did say that overall there are some objectives in the bill which he saw no problems with and might be good, but there are these component parts, and I didn't take a note to actually detail them, as I anticipate that this would not be the last we'll be hearing on that bill, and that the citizens will have an adequate opportunity to discuss it. So hopefully good sense will prevail and that the government will not rush through on the basis of the fact that it has almost a 2/3 majority in the House. In any event, a simple majority, and it can proceed to pass a bill through all of its stages. I think if it does that, it's just inviting itself to unnecessary protests and so on. So I will hope the better side of wisdom prevails and give all parties the opportunity to be ready to discuss the bill and to dissect it. I mean, we have critical organizations in the community, people like the Grenada Bar Association and so on. Then there are some interest groups. I think 1 or 2 of them were mentioned last night. And there are different citizens organizations. I certainly think the trade union should weigh in on this because the potential for depriving or infringing on the rights of the workers, especially where fundamental rights are concerned, could be occasioned by the passage of this bill if the bill is not fine-tuned and take into consideration the opinions of people with significant knowledge of how these things operate. So that's just my little 2 pence on it. I couldn't comment in any detail because in these things it requires you to really study the bill. And I did not make more than a passing note of what Dr. Alexis has been reported to say on the news. And as I said, while that might be informative, but it is also dangerous because one has to understand the context in which a number of things are occurring for you to have a full grasp and then get grasp and understanding of it.
Now, outside of the bill, you've just mentioned the workers, and quite a lot has been going on with workers in Grenada since the 23rd of June. Even in the days after that, we were hearing of firings in Carriacou, and some here on the mainland. We've heard of situations where agencies are not being paid and all sorts of things taking place. What is your view of what has been taking place with workers in Grenada, especially on a day like March the 13th, a day that the workers of Grenada decided to choose their own destiny? What is your view of what has been going on with workers since the change in government?
Well, since the change in government, the government has embarked in some areas on almost a Nazi type cleansing of the employment environment, on some mistaken application of a principle that that when a government changes, I guess all those who employed are changed, but the jobs that they have been terminating are jobs of ordinary working people. And it's very bad politics, quite frankly, very bad politics, but I don't understand why they have engaged in that. And in some areas, those terminations seem to be more heavily concentrated. At the moment, as I stand, I mean, I am handling a number of those cases from an industrial relations point of view. And the challenge that I have is the dysfunction at the Ministry of Labor means that you can't get matters heard. I have had several cases now before the Ministry of Labor. As you know, I have gone back into the practice of industrial relations, and I have my own consultancy that I've set up. And I'm trying to help quite a number of workers in that field. And I have quite a number of matters before the Ministry of Labor. Some of those matters I brought under the grievance and dispute procedure going back as early as the 19th of October last year, right? The 19th of October, the 26th of October. And I'm handling a case now that's about 4 years old before the Ministry of Labor. Well, we did get a hearing week before. That's the week prior to the dismissal of the Ms. Valerie Thomas. I did get a date for a hearing there, but unfortunately there was some mix-up at the level of the ministry. And while we showed up for the meeting, the wrong employer was summoned to the meeting. And so the meeting didn't come off, and we were anticipating that we would get a date for the middle of last week. But then by Friday week before, the goodly lady was summarily dismissed. Dismissed as though, as I said, I mean, her termination amounted to a summary dismissal, and I couldn't quite understand how that would occur. I mean, summary dismissal is used, but I mean, it has to be for something very acute. Either an employee presents a physical threat on the job, an employee does something so egregious like stealing or openly dishonest, or does something that significantly compromises the employment contract. Now, I don't know, I mean, the explanations we got in respect of the dismissal of Ms. Valerie Thomas was both opaque and highly unusual, and if not downright irregular. The country is yet to know the terms and conditions of Ms. Thomas's employment. So, for example, we don't know what the length of a probationary period is. In the Act, I think, I'll have to search for it, but I think in the Act sets out, I believe, a month or 2 months or whatever it is there, unless you otherwise agreed by way of a contract differently. Now, this is a fairly senior position, and the labor commissioner, as it were, is the captain on the ship of industrial relations trying to keep the economy stable. And the economy is under acute pressure at this time. We've just had to come out of COVID, and before we could catch our breath, we went into a general election, and that created some disruptions and so on. And then after that, now we are into the NATO war that's taking place now in Ukraine, and that has its own implications. It has shot up prices in oil and shot prices in food, especially all food related to grain and poultry. We've had massive increases in these things. There has not been any significant employment growth in the economy. Granted that the current government inherited a fully financed and well put together capital side of the budget, and I think they're sensible enough to allow that to proceed because that creates jobs. I can't quite understand why the $100 and something million program for the Western Main Road, I don't understand how that was allowed to fall off. From the explanations given by the government, they wanted to reimagine the project so that that road construction could get people who are living in St. Patrick down into St. George's in less than 45 minutes. Now, I can't understand. You see, people have to be very careful with the proclamations that they make. And this government will soon understand that government by slogan just doesn't work. Right. What is there in the economy that will generate the funds to repay a project of road construction that will create the possibility for you to move safely from the northernmost parish of St. Patrick to get to the city of St. George's in less than 45 minutes? Right? What economic activity, bearing in mind that in a population of 120,000 persons, there are just about 25 or 27,000 people that are creating wealth in this country. The rest are very young people who are either in school, infants. The others are elderly people who could no longer work, and people who are infirmed and that kind of thing. So it's a very small wealth-generating population that we have. And, you know, it's good to think big, but at the same time, one has to think realistic. So I don't quite understand that. And to have allowed a project of $100 and something million in a small economy at a time when things are tight, at a time when unemployment is still particularly very high. It has gone down since COVID, but still very high. And remember, since COVID, we have had, well, assuming that we take 2022 as the year when things get back to normal, we would have graduated what? I think every year coming into the job market and out of the school market, so to speak, is approximately 1,200 persons. So by the end of this school year, there will be 2,400 persons added to the labor market. And if you are not creating jobs, and so therefore to allow $100 and something million, now what does that mean for government revenue? What does that mean for the circulation of money in the economy? Particularly when that money is spent in the rural areas where things are very stressed out, where, as you know, we are yet to significantly recover. While we have been some changes in the economy, but it is actually hit and miss. It is not an integrated reconstruction of the economy out of the plantation system, right? I know we have this great nostalgia for agriculture and so on, and that's a whole different discussion. But the fact of the matter is, could a government in the state in which we find ourselves, where prices are rising, there have not been any significant wage increases, certainly not in the private sector. And while I know that wage increases are ongoing in the public sector now, and I've heard, I think the government's last offer over the 3-year period might be 10% or 12% or somewhere there. The rate of inflation, especially on food items, is anywhere like 24, 25%. Just on that alone. And then the energy cost of inflation is another very significant thing. And the relief that was brought in the height of all of this, a lot of the relief have run their term. And so you now have to come back and pay. I mean, electricity costs and so on is exceedingly high in Grenada, and it's a fetter on the growth of the economy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So you have all of that. And therefore, to allow $100 and something million to slip through your fingers while you're reimagining, I mean, that just boggles the mind.
Do you believe it's reimagining, or they just point blank lose the money and looking for an excuse?
Well,
is it taking the government at its word?
Yeah, but whatever I'm saying, you know, what I'm saying is, well, if the latter, as you say, is what has occurred, but then that's a case of gross negligence. That's a case of gross negligence because there was sufficient time for you to learn what are the major projects on what are the major loans and grants that the government of Grenada. I'm not talking now. I'm talking about the government of Grenada. I'm not talking now about the NNP government.
Mm-hmm.
The government of Grenada, whether it be NNP or otherwise, the NNP contracted a series of grants, a series of loans, a series of projects, right? And if you are coming into the government, you have to make yourself familiar with what these are. And I mean, there's a Ministry of Finance, very efficient, right? The senior officers in the Ministry of Finance have not changed, right? The senior officers in the Ministry of Works have not changed. These public officers will be aware of what all of these things are. In any event, in the index to the 2022 budget, all the loans and all the grants and things are laid out there. And then you have the report from the FROC. All these things are laid out there, so it's not a mystery. It's not a mystery, and I'm certain that Cabinet would have, maybe in its very early days, asked the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, to brief the Cabinet, right? You could certainly ask a brief from the Caribbean Development Bank. You can ask a brief from the Central Bank. I mean, you have all of these institutions which are sort of adjunct to the bureaucracy of the state that are fairly very efficient and that can brief you on the state of play now that you come into bat. Right? So I don't know. If the latter, you describe it as the case, then that's a case of gross negligence, almost to the point of criminal negligence, because how you going to, I mean, because $100 million plus coming into the economy, you know what that means for government revenue?
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means for the circulation of money? You know what that means for business?
You've mentioned...
And that money is going in the construction sector.
And you've
buying
said it.
Cement, it is buying lumber, it is buying a whole range of different things, right? And then the workers have to be paid. The work is happening in the countryside. It's the main road connecting up on the western side. That's a big project. You know how many small shops will see money as the workers are working, and now we have absolutely perfect weather. Absolutely perfect weather for construction. And in this kind of weather, when construction workers are working, they drink a lot, especially on a Friday and payday. The guys drink a lot of beer. They visit the shops during the day. They drink.
Barbecue. They
Right?
barbecue the food.
A number of the small entrepreneurs, like single women, right? They come on the job sites and they sell food. They sell saltfish sandwich, corned beef sandwich. They freeze the juice. So it's a whole bevy of activity. And what you need in an economy that is slowing down and where things are difficult is to increase the circulation of money. So I owe Jane and I pay Jane. Jane owned the small shop, so she pays the small shop. The small shop, it takes the retailer who goes around in a small truck selling, right, has to pay that person. That person then works with Bryden and Miners, brings in the money. Bryden and Miners then order new goods. It arrives on the port. The port workers get paid, right? The truckers have to collect it from the port to bring it by Bryden and Miners. The government collects revenue. I mean, it's a whole, $100 and something million in a small economy in difficult times as this is not a bit of money that you could spend time reimagining and then lose it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And folks, for those of you who have just joined us, we are speaking with Senator Chester Humphrey.
Well, I'm no longer in the Senate. I don't
No. You could say what you want. You could say what you want on your end. As far as we're concerned, you will always be Senator the Honorable Chester Arlington Humphrey.
Well, all right. Well, thank you. I'll take that. I won't take a colonial award, but I'll take that.
Well, we know, We know you're the individual that got rid of the Whig in Parliament,
Well, yeah, it took a little while. Well, I must give the speaker credit.
Yes.
Because he went to sit in a thing before me, but we have been talking about it and so on, and if I may use the opportunity to say, it's high time for us now to become a republic at some point, but that's down the road.
Yes, and that is
Yeah,
a broader discussion we need to have. Now,
yeah, at some point.
you have
Yeah.
spoken about the situation within the Ministry of Labor. I for myself, I have my own issues with our Attorney General also being the Minister of Labor. And so I have my issues with that. Your perspective on
Well,
the
it's a
Ministry of Labor.
funny,
Three labor
actually,
ministers, in the space of 9 months. I mean, we're operating like how Britain is changing prime ministers.
yeah, but remember on an earlier program that I did, when the trade unions began to complain, I said to them, no, at the earlier period, I said that I made a suggestion when word was being circulated that they were planning to get rid of the labor commissioner. And I said to them, that will prove to be a mistake. And maybe what you need to do is, rather than have an open-end contract with the then labor commissioner, because Cyrus Griffith is the most experienced labor commissioner you had on the island. He's been there the longest, right? So maybe they should say, well, look, we're going to bring this thing to an end. But again, he was literally summarily dismissed. The guy got the letter somewhere around midday and asked to vacate office by the afternoon.
Oh,
I don't know why this is becoming, but this seems now to be normative, right? And all of the people that they fire, including the workers, and these are simple workers. These are workers making $1,400 a month. Some of these workers have had 9 years of these so-called contracts for indefinite terms. Well, I don't know how you're going to have a contract for 9 years for of an indefinite term. When you were first employed, no one told you anything. You continue to be employed. There is the principle of reasonable expectation, right? And they just terminate your contract like that, just with a few days' notice, summer early, as if you had committed some criminal offense, as if you had threatened somebody, as if you stole on the job, as if you had been seriously insubordinate, just like that. And these are ordinary workers, $1,400 a month, $1,200 a month. No, these people are not political employees. I mean, I could see if you have a chief of staff, somebody like a William Joseph who calls himself a chief of staff and is advising the prime minister outside of the ambit of the public service, right? And yeah, when the regime goes, you go.
yeah.
But an ordinary worker doing a secretarial clerical function, 9 years in a job, 10 years in a job, right? And you just give that worker a letter on Friday and say, don't come to work on Monday, you're terminated? Nah.
A clerk,
Right, so it's in the
security
practice. So
officers.
they did that with Cyrus. And then Mr. Lord, who is the next man in line, came in. But remember that Lord's primary focus of the years he spent in the ministry was occupational health and safety, and he's been very good at that,
Yes,
to be
yes.
quite frank. Yes, he has industrial relations experience, but it was not his prime focus. In any event, you appointed him, I think the appointment was labor commissioner, right? Knowing fully well that Mr. Lord's stint as a labor commissioner was only going to be a matter of a few months, because he was literally within striking distance of pre-retirement and that he was going to retire in a few months. The months came and went, and Mr. Lord retired. I think he left, was it in August or somewhere, September, August last year?
August, September, somewhere
And you
around
knew
there.
that. You didn't have a labor commissioner at the time, right? The ministry itself is poorly staffed, and that's been a historic problem. It's not a problem exclusively of the new government. They inherited that. It's poorly staffed. They don't have the adequate number of labor officers with the experience and training, because a labor commissioner and a deputy labor commissioner spends an inordinate amount of time doing a lot of dispute resolution, conciliation, and so on, is a primary function. In fact, when you go to the Act and you look at the terms of the if you look at Section 7, I think it is Section 8 of the Employment Act, that sets out, it literally gives you a job description of what the Labor Commissioner has to do. Subject to Section 6, and Section 6 speaks about whether or not there's a Department of Labor or a Ministry of Labor. The law begins in Section 6.1, Part 2, Establishment and Functions of the Labor Department. It says, there shall be a Department of Labor under the authority of the Minister. But it says, in the event of the establishment of a Ministry of Labor, all reference in the Act to the Department of Labor shall be construed as a reference to the Minister of Labor. Right? And then it goes on in 7 to say there shall be a Labor Commissioner, a Deputy Labor Commissioner, and such number of senior labor officers and labor officers as may be necessary. But as I said, there has been serious deficiencies in the Ministry of Labor in regard of staff and so on. But the responsibilities of the Labor Commissioner, this is why I said the explanation offered by Senator Joseph in her capacity as Minister of Labor is very strange and opaque. Because the law sets out, subject to Section 6, which I just read earlier, the Labor Commissioner shall be the chief advisor to the Minister on all labor matters and shall be responsible for the administration of the department, in which case now is the Ministry of Labor, and the enforcement of the Act, and in particular shall and begins promote the settlement of any differences between employers and employees in accordance with the provisions of the Act. B, it gives 8 specifics. Promote the settlement of any differences. Advise the Minister on all labor matters and on measures to improve labor relations generally. Encourage the development of tripartitism. Now, as I say, none of these details here require the Labor Commissioner to be a fit with staff. I have never heard a case where a permanent secretary has to be a fit with staff. The minister, in the same breath that she announced the termination of the goodly lady, says that she is fit, she is qualified for the job. And so the question arises, what it is that triggered this? There must have been a complaint, because she said that the goodly lady, by not being a proper fit, my words now, was sort of undermining the Ministry of Labor. Now, I can't understand. There's no requirement in this Act for the lady to be a fit at anything. She has her duties laid out here in the Act, right? As I said, we are not privy to her contract of employment. In addition to which, I don't know what the length of the probationary period might have been, and if she would have completed the probationary period. Then the question arises, because the question of performance was not upon what she was dismissed, then who or what triggered this so-called fit that would have led, because the Act lays out in section 7, Part 2, Section 7, subsection 4. It lays out that, and I read and I quote, all appointments to the Ministry of Labor, changing the word from Department to Ministry of Labor, are to be made by the Public Service Commission. So it is the Commission may have appointed her. Now, I don't know, and as I said, this is a post in the public service. The Labor Commissioner post is in the public service, right? It is. It's not on a post that has been abolished. It's there. Funds for that post has been approved and passed, right? So I don't know under what terms and conditions are appointed. But even if she was under a probationary period, as I say, I don't know what the probation period is. Nobody has been. I mean, when the minister set out to give her explanation of the termination, she did not say, well, the goodly lady was still on probation, because as a probationer, you're very vulnerable. However, good industrial relations practice, and the ministry is under an obligation to maintain good industrial relations practice, because remember, that is a mechanism for resolving disputes. Mm-hmm. So the ministry itself in the way in which it conducts its own self-governance must be above disrepute. The ministry itself cannot be engaging in bad industrial relation practices and then expecting employers and employees, right, to be engaged in good industrial relation practices. In other words, he who judge must be above judgment. Not that you are untouchable, but your conduct must be such, right? Your conduct of yourself. I mean, you can't have a judge in a case who has been convicted of stealing or a judge suspected of stealing when the judge is sitting in cases with people coming before him. And this is why the court always insists on the clean hands principle and so on. So that the minister made no reference to the fact of the woman. In fact, she said the contrary, that the woman was well qualified, but she was just not a fit. And as a result, my words now, present a threat to the transformation agenda. Now, what does all of that mean? No explanation. And as I'm saying, good industrial relation practice would be that if you're on probation and they are doing an assessment of your performance, because that is how things would happen. If you're on a 6-month probation, the employer would say, after the first 2 months, we will do an assessment. And it's in the employer's interest, right, to do an assessment. And that assessment will require that you point to the employee the areas that you are dissatisfied, the areas you think the employee is weak. Because remember, you are on the hunt to get somebody to fill this post. It's not a post you want to leave unattended. Because, I mean, the trade unions have been complaining that they're not getting matters processed. As I told you, I submitted matters before the Ministry of Labor since October last year. And I'm yet to get a single hearing on any one of these matters. I've heard President of the Public Workers Union complaining. A number of employers that I am engaged with have themselves been expressing frustration. They can't get things heard. And you don't want to have a poisoned industrial relations environment precisely at a time when you have galloping inflation, you have increases in unemployment because you have more people entering the job market. A number of businesses have closed. A number of businesses have had to contract. Employment is basically closed off at the moment simply because of the challenges within the economy, hyperinflation, etc., etc., etc. Rents are going up, but the cost of money is going to be increasing slightly. And you see what is happening to the United States now in the banking sector. Mm-hmm. All of these things ultimately will filter down to us. It will take a little time, but it's going to get here. And the IMF has been warning that certain developed economies have just barely skirted recession, right? Britain, a market in which we do a tremendous amount of business, is facing tremendous difficulties. There are almost riotous labor issues there. Doctors on strike, nurses on strike, railway workers on strike, fire engine people on strike. I mean, there's strike just sweeping the UK right now. Right? The same thing is happening in France. Now, it's only a matter of time before the negative effects of these things reach our shores.
Now, you've mentioned several things there, and I do take my mind back to, I believe it is July or August of last year, when the Honorable Minister and Attorney General, Minister of Labor and Attorney General, in reference to the situation with several workers in Carriacou, spoke of some of them being fired basically because they were against the transformational agenda. And then to have that repeated recently again.
Well, I don't know. I don't. That's not a dismissible offense. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does being against the transformational agenda? What does that mean in practice? What is it? How does a clerical officer who is keeping timekeeping for people working, how could she affect the transformational agenda? If it is a disciplinary issue, then you follow the disciplinary procedure. But you issue no warning letters. And what is worse, you, the Minister of Labor, you have a statutory role to perform. And your statutory role is to mediate in disputes. And you are pronouncing on a matter which is yet to reach to you. I remember when Peter David was Minister of Labour, and people would be complaining, I can't hear Peter David. Peter David, you're going to sleep. Not understanding the role, the statutory role that the Minister of Labour have to play. You have to act more or less as a judge. You have to, as the court mediating services and as a mediator, you have to try to bring the parties together. If you make an announcement before you hear the case, that the case which is outplaying itself in the media and the public, that one side is already wrong, then how could you then mediate in the issue? If before hearing the case you prejudge it, you haven't heard any presentation on the other side. You've heard one side of the story and pronounced that that person has absolutely no case. Well, then what do you leave people to do? You're just inciting chaos in the society.
And
and unfairness.
I have been hearing fear from several workers across the public service due to there have been passed letters, oaths of affirmation and so on have been given to them. And there is an atmosphere of fear across the public service in Grenada. Some people are wondering when their Saturday is going to come. Your thoughts on what is taking place right now within the public service, not just the Ministry of Labour, which we know has seriously been underperforming, but what has been taking place across the public service in Grenada in general. We've also heard, additional to that, situations. We had the Honorable Emlyn Pear on a couple of weeks ago, mentioning 88 people in her constituency alone that have been sent home by this administration, the vast majority of them being women, and women who are leading their households. Your views on both of these. What is taking place within the public service right now and this mass firing?
As I've told quite a number of people, and I must say that, Sister Delma has directed some of these people to me, and I'm handling some of these cases. So again, if you have been terminated, you can contact me. I would need to see a termination letter, and I would need some information on your employment history, and we can grieve the matter, because the law lays down under the unfair termination provisions in the Act. It lays down a procedure that one can follow in dealing with this matter. So for workers who have been terminated, I'm saying they're free to connect with me, right? And I will give them the necessary advice in that regard. But again, as I say, when you not only this thing is just, you see, people must remember that these terminations have a human face. There's a human face to this, right? As I say, in one of the cases I'm dealing with there, in fact, all of the women, I believe, that I'm representing, all of them are single mothers, right? All of them have children in school. At least 2 of them are paying small mortgages from the credit union and so on. Now, these are Grenadian citizens. As I say, if you have a William Joseph Chief of Staff and the government falls, but he goes home, that's not a problem. That's a standard business. I mean, we know that. Mm-hmm. Because there's no designation in the public service as Chief of Staff. There's a permanent secretary. There is the cabinet secretary. There is the Department of Personnel, DPMS or whatever you call them, and so on. There's no such thing as There's no such thing as of Chief of Staff. So that is a political designation, and of course, when your party loses, out you go. But these are people who have been little clerical officers. They are clerical officers there. These people cannot affect government policy. They don't make policy. They are not executing. It's not to say that they're working in the Ministry of Finance and they could sabotage or they could garner information that you would consider to be confidential and so on. That's not the kind of thing. These are just ordinary Grenadian folk right, who are doing their best to try to put food on the table. They're not engaged in drugs. They're not engaged in prostitution. They're trying to make a decent living. They have been employees of the state, not the traditional public servant appointed by the Public Service Commission, but the state has a whole bevy of employment that it creates and so on in order to satisfy the service needs of the state in delivering good governance, order, and so on in the country. Right? You're going to dismiss all of these people. Now you have to ask yourself, what would become of their families?
And
what would become of their families? Right? And this is why I come back to the point of the Western Main Road project and the loss of that funding. We can't afford many more like that.
Well, I have been following up as well over the past few weeks on some of the pronouncements of the now Prime Minister when he was simply the leader of the NDC. And one of them was that individuals who have been working on a contract over an extended period of time can't be considered to be working on a contract. He was saying they have to be considered as permanent employees, but the actions of his administration are proving differently.
The law on that will be tested shortly. That much I can tell you. I think that matter is going to end up before a court of law for a declaration. Because the law is clear, but there is a very diffuse interpretation, and they have been firing people left, right, and center. Yes? So that matter is going to, at some point in the not-too-distant future, go before a court of law for a determination as to whether or not your purported contract for service, right, is indeed not a contract of service. Mm-hmm. That is going to go because the law is very clear on the number of contracts. The law is very, very clear on this here. They are just in Section 29 of the Employment Act. The law only recognizes three types of contracts here. The contract for an unspecified period of time, which means that you're permanent. The contract for a specified period of time, which is what they claim that these workers were, so they could terminate them at any time. And the contract for a specified task. But the law is very clear. In Section 5 of 29, subsection 5 of 29, it makes it clear that where, and listen to the language, where the purpose or effect of a contract that is purportedly, in other words, pretending to be a contract for a specified period of time or for a specific task, and that such a job, my words, and I go back to the quote, is the filling on a lasting basis of a post connected with the normal and permanent activity of the undertaking establishment of service, it shall be deemed to be a contract for an unspecified period of time. So even if you have these people on these 2-year contracts and you keep renewing it, or in some cases you don't renew it at all, but effectively, constructively, you renew it because you keep the person employed long beyond the time when the contract expired. You didn't seek to formally renew the contract. You can't just wake up one Monday morning and Friday and give the people a letter and tell them, Baba, I know work for you on Monday. Your contract has come to an end. When your initial contract was for 2 years in the first instance, and that contract was never renewed nor terminated. I mean, this is manifestly unfair. So I'm saying this matter will be tested in a court of law sometime pretty soon.
And it's exactly...
And that will settle the case once and for all, because I noticed they did the same thing in respect of the nurses whom they had championed. And I want you to recall that the new National Party made over 400 and something teachers permanent, Mm-hmm. And that the National Party has begun to make a whole sway of nurses permanent. So the political party that pronounced that these people should be permanent, what did they do? And these are in jobs that exist in the public service. Right? These are jobs that exist in the public service. They went and give them back another 2-year contract. So again, it's a breach of a covenant to the people, and we will see how that plays out politically in the years ahead.
Well,
right? We will see how that plays out in the months ahead. But it is certainly a breach. It's certainly a backpedaling, and I do not believe that a $500. While I guess the $500 gratuitous pay per month will be welcomed by anybody. Right? I do not think that is a sufficient replacement for the promise they made. Right? And they're now hiding under the fig leaf that you require constitutional amendment. You don't require no constitutional amendment to fill posts in the public service that are permanent posts. What constitutional amendment? That's just old talk. What constitutional amendment you require to appoint a nurse in a position in the public service that's in the budget where the money has been approved? What constitutional amendment you need to do that?
Because these are positions, if you check the budget document, these are positions that are catered
in the public service. These are sections in the public service. So I don't know. I mean, as I said to you before, the explanations really don't add up. And quite frankly, it creates an insulting situation because of the stupidity of the explanations, and you think that people will buy it. So you either assume that people are dumb and stupid and don't understand what you're saying, and therefore don't have the capacity of understanding, so you treat them with disdain and contempt. But when you treat them with that contempt, right, in the next 40-something months, you're coming back for the votes now. And as I tell you, the history of the NDC is not one in which they are known to have an extensive. Their shelf life is very short.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a single occasion when the NDC made a full 5 years. In the 2018-2013 period, when they shut the parliament down, it's simply because they didn't want the no confidence motion to be debated. Right? And then they went, before the complete 5 years was finished, they barely made 4 years in 1990 when internal divisions took over, right? Because you remember they were formed somewhere in 1988 or somewhere there. By 1990, when they went to the polls, they didn't come out with a majority. So by 1995, they went back to the poll again, and there was more internal division. Mm-hmm. Right?
You had a resignation of a prime minister before that.
Sir Nicholas Braffett quitting office before his 5-year term, and that led to Brizan coming in. And then Brizan, in almost quick order, almost quit, and Ms. Joan Purcell then became the kind of de facto leader, and it kept going on like that. And between 2008 and 2013, well, you know what occurred there, right? The government had to suspend Parliament, keep Parliament Peru for an undue long period of time, not in the way in which the Constitution contemplated that you can prorogue Parliament for a long period of time because of some extenuating circumstance touching and concerning some calamity, whether natural or man-made. But in this case, all that extended prorogation had to do is to prevent a vote of no confidence, a motion of no confidence being debated.
No, I want to move to another topic there for you, with you. The National Insurance Scheme. I have been hearing stories, some concerns by the trade union movement in relation to the composition I believe it's one of the committees, not necessarily the board. I think it is. I'm not too clear on the
No,
issue
it's,
itself.
it's the finance committee, I believe, of the NIS. Now, just let me stick a point here and say to you that the way the PRG constituted the National Insurance Board when it was brought into being by the PRG, it was constructed in such a way as to protect the institution from the well, I won't say sticky hands, but from the hands of the executive. And this is why the Grenada NIS has been best run NIS in all of the OECS.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Right? It has been the best run NIS. Why? Because the government, and I'm talking now about the executive, does not have a majority on the board. Right? The government, the executive, that means the cabinet, is a minority on the board. And that the combined forces of the workers, right, as represented by the trade union council, and the employers, as recommended by the private sector organization, they each have 2 members on the board, whereas the government nominates 3. So the board is made up of 7 members, of which the government has 3, and each of the other social partners, 2 each, giving them a majority. And as a result of that, that has protected the intrusive arm of grabbing up funds. And you remember what happened during the period 2008 to 2013.
Oh, yes.
The government was borrowing massively, right, from the NIS. And we were growing very concerned because we caught ourselves in a catch-22. The government was coming to the NIS to get money to pay its employees. We were very concerned of the extent of government debt and the fact that the government debt was only paid for with more debt. So the government will issue bonds, it will take cash, so it is taking cash out of the system and putting in government bonds. But because the government had become unfinancial, right, and not financially healthy, no one was buying its bonds, right? So what it was doing, it was starving the NIS of cash. So what we did at the level of the TUC, since we were caught in a position in which the government needed to borrow money to pay our members, we then said, well, okay, we are not going to take bonds, we are going to take real estate. So we said to the government, transfer the shares of the freehold to us on Grand Anse Beach, transfer the shares that you have in cable and wireless and give it to us, and we will hold that. So that the NIS, and then earlier we did a period when Chester John was chairman, a significant amount of land was handed over, government land was handed over for the bonds, because as I said, all the government was doing was taking all the cash and giving us useless paper. So when the bonds mature, instead of giving us cash, they will issue new bonds. The bonds are hard to sell because nobody's buying them. Grenada was uncreditworthy, blah, 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 blah. So we introduced that mechanism. And this is what led the government to try to sell assets where it didn't even own those assets. The Hamilton home for the elderly in the middle of Lucas Street was one such building that the then finance minister had sold to the NIS, only to discover that that building was not freehold. It did not belong to the state. It belonged to some charitable organization and some trust that was set up, and so on and so on and so forth. So I'm saying all of this to say, because the board the cabinet has a minority on the board, the 2 parties, employers and unions, have always been working in concert and therefore protect the organization from the long reach of the cabinet, right? However, we moved into a phase of problems where, for political reasons, cabinet had always been delinquent in implementing the actual changes in order to protect the long-term viability of the organization. And now we are being rushed to do that. So much so that the retirement age, I still think, is 60, whereas almost 10 years ago, the actuaries pointed out. So we are 10 years behind. And for the first time, I believe it might just be before COVID, the NIS for the first time since its founding was paying out more money than it was taking in and had to go into its reserves in order to meet its payment obligation. Right? So in order to protect the organization, which simply means in order that people who are paid into the NIS will be able to receive their pensions, you have to make these adjustments. You have to increase the retirement age to 65. And this is happening all over the world, all over the world, not just in Grenada. It's necessary. But it is even more necessary in Grenada simply because our working population is small, 27,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And we are very migrant population. So a lot of the young and robust part of the population are leaving and going away. And we have an age now. I mean, I have been drawing NIS now for the past 10 years. I've been drawing NIS for the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a fact that after 24 months of receiving your NIS payment, you would have consumed from the NIS contributions to you all the money you would have put in. So if you spend 20 working, NIS came in 1983. So assuming that you were in the NIS in 1983, 83 and 17, right? That's 20. And let's say you retired in 2010. That's 27 years, right? 17 and 10, that's 27 years. Assuming that you were contributing for 27 years. Within the first 2 years of you receiving NIS, you would have paid back, you would have received from NIS all the money you put in for 27 years. And so therefore now you're a net consumer of the NIS reserves because you are getting out of NIS far much more money than you put in. Bearing in mind that the rate of interest on a fixed deposit now is 0.5% or 1% and that kind of stuff. So that if you don't make these actuarial amendments, increase the retirement age, increase the payments, there's going to come a point, and we have reached that point. If there's no water going into the bucket, and you keep taking out water, at some point, the bucket is going to run empty. This is just a fact of life. Right? And I can tell you, there are situations in which the NIS has proved more a blessing than private insurance. And if you don't believe me, any of your listeners who know anybody in the Seamen's Union right now, because of the collapse of British American and CLICO, because the Seamen's pension was on pension investment in CLICO, they lost all their money. These workers who were putting in significant sums of money while working on the dock, CLICO bust and gone away with millions of dollars. These workers now, the only thing they are getting is from NIS. And they put in more than 10 times in CLICO than they put in NIS. Yet the only thing that they could rely on now, where they can't work anymore, they have all different kind of all kinds of age complaints, from back problems to kidney problems to heart problems to diabetes. They can't work. Some people are blinded by diabetic retinopathy. They can't see. They can't work anymore. And the only income they have, after spending years of significant sums of money in that CLICO pension plan, right now, the only income they have is the NIS.
I could attest to that because I've got a brother who is among one of those who is in that
right?
situation.
So let's not poo-poo NIS and play around with it. We have to be responsible, right? And I'm seeing signs that, well, so you have that. The other thing is NIS is going to introduce an unemployment benefit. But remember, these things have to be funded. You can't get a benefit without paying for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take payments that are meant for your pension to pay for unemployment. because all you're doing is just, again, draining out a bucket of pension funds. So yes, it's good to introduce an unemployment benefit, but it has to be paid for. And how does it have to be paid for? It has to come from the workers and the employers. So that's another contribution that will come on top of your salary. And a lot of workers upset and say, well, look, you're deducting money, but remember, NIS is a forced savings. A contribution from you to the NIS is not taking away money from you, you know. It's a savings. It's a compulsory saving. Because remember, every cent you put in NIS is matched by the employer. Just bear that in mind. Every cent you put in NIS is matched by the employer. So it used to be 4%. I think it is now 5%. Discount the 1% that employers pay now, which is 6%. Because that 1% is an employer cost for workmen's compensation. But the NIS is now, NIS, a few years ago, introduced a workmen's compensation component to the NIS. So that if you got injured on the job, once you bring in your sick leave to the NIS and so on, you will get paid. So that it's employment insurance, you will get paid, your salary because you're ill. But if you got injured on the job, NIS will also pay for your medication and so on and so on and so on and so forth. Now, that is an employer liability. And for that, the employer pays 1%. So if you're introducing right now unemployment insurance, which I understand it would be another 1%, right? So in other words, the employer's contribution to the fund which goes to the worker is 7%. And your contribution is 5% because well, it will be 6% because you pay the 1% improvement in order to make sure that when you retire, there's money in the kitty, there's water in the bucket, so that you could get, because the way these things work is, workers like myself, I contributed before. My contribution went to the workers who were older than me, right? They have died. Now it is my time. As I tell you, after 24 to 28 months, can't remember the exact figure now, the total amount of money that you put as contribution to the NIS, you would have received that in NIS benefits. So somebody now has to fund that extra money that you're now getting way and beyond what you contribute. Even if you add the 1% or 0.5% interest to it. And how is that done? I am a retiree now. So my pension, cash for my pension would come from the workers who are young and now working. After I am dead and gone, the workers who are contributing now, from which I get money for the pension that I receive every month, they will be young workers. But as I tell you before, there have been significant demographic changes. There have been, first of all, high unemployment for a period. Ivan created that. And then you have heavy migration. So your young and robust part of your population is leaving. So because of high unemployment, the amount of cash that you receive every month to put into some investment bucket to pay the NIS, right, that has been significantly reduced. And this is why you need to say, okay, your retirement age is not 60. Your retirement age progressively will go up each year and over a 5-year period until you remove your retirement age from age 60 to age 65. However, there's one catch, and that catch is that the pensionable age of public officers, those who are holding an instrument, I call it a license or warrant from the Public Service Commission, and appointed in the service by the Public Service Commission, according to the findings of the Constitutional Court and according to the 1958 Act, their retirement age is 60. So unless you amend the Constitution, you can't change your retirement age. Although you will give them the opportunity to work 5 years more. And if they work 5 years more, then they pension from NIS. Because remember, these employees, based on the recent finding in the court last year, the employees are getting 2 pensions. They're getting the NIS pension and then they're getting the state pension. I want you to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
So,
understanding all of this, though, the recent moves in relation to the NIS, is it something we ought to be concerned about? Because this is the committee that deals with the business of the NIS.
all right, so
What
let me
money they
come
put
back to
out,
that.
what
Sorry,
money they
sorry.
put in.
Yes, sorry, but I call in the senator. Let me just come back to that. I got lost for a moment. No, you have what is called, as I said, the NIS board is made up of 7 persons, of which 3 is appointed by cabinet, and 4, 2 appointed by the trade union council, and 2 appointed by the employers federation, right? Representing employers. So that is 7 on the board. Now, when you come to the investment committee used to follow the same pattern, except that there was a period after the revolution when they started to load the investment committee with people other than an equal amount from the different sides. If I'm not mistaken, the law was amended. I think we got that amendment in the very early days of 2008. We got the NDC to amend that law. What had happened is, in the normal course of things, the government will write the representative organizations and say, look, could you please submit your nominees, right? And I believe on the investment committee, I think that the investment committee is made up of, I believe it's 3 persons. I'm not sure, I'm kind of hazy. It's quite a while since I read those things. I believe it is 3 persons, because for quite a while the TUC representative on the investment committee was Mr. Roy O'Neill. As you know, Roy O'Neill is a former retired banker. He worked in the region. He worked for Bank of Nova Scotia. He was once a country manager in Grenada. He was a country manager in Antigua. And then he held several very important regional roles. So because the investment committee has to look at investments and so on, and we're talking about a lot of money, we made sure that we nominated somebody who has the competencies in dealing with finance and so on. And what better than a retired banker from a very successful international bank, right? So that Mr. O'Neill is super qualified, both in terms of experience and in terms of the practical training and so on he would have received, and of course, operating at a very senior level within the Bank of Nova Scotia in the region, he would have been exposed to a lot of technical training and a lot of stuff. So in other words, he has the eye for money management and so on, and he had been serving the TUC there. My understanding is that without any consultation with the representative organization of workers, they just went and appoint somebody and say that person is there. But that's not the way it's done. So my understanding, and that's a bad sign, because you see, when you do that, then the person who you appoint, the person has no obligations to the TUC.
Well, this is
If
also
the TUC
worrying.
discovered that you have been operating in a cavalier manner, that you have been operating to satisfy the whims and fancies or the secret desires of the politician, and not looking up, because remember, the money in this fund belongs to Grenadian workers. It does not belong to the employers. It does not belong to government. And this is why such a committee needs to be independent and not beholden to some organization. I remember once a local business wanted to borrow money, and they had to come to the TUC. They wanted to borrow money for some big investment, and they needed to come to the TUC. And the TUC said to them, the only how our representative will approve that loan is if we get equity in return for the money that we put in. Because this is a lucrative business you're about to invest in. This is the workers' money, right? And we want equity in the business. In other words, we want to be a shareholder in the business.
Mm-hmm.
so that when you make your big profits, you don't just walk away with all of the profits in your pocket. Some of that profits must come back to the workers in the form of dividends.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now you go and appoint somebody in the investment committee that has no links to the trade union movement. Because as I tell you, in the past, the trade union movement would be invited to a nominee, and then the TUC would meet, and they will invite recommendations from amongst themselves. Then the TUC executive or the TUC general counsel or whatever it is would meet and scrutinize who is being proposed. And that person would have an instrument which commits them to keep the TUC informed. And we need to have reports, because at every TUC convention, like I'm speaking now about the times that I was there, I don't know if the same thing occurs, but in every TUC convention in those days, Anselm Biberg, Stanley Roberts, right, were the TUC representatives. And both of those individuals did a splendid job, especially Stanley Roberts. Especially Stanley Roberts had a hawk's eye, and you couldn't do anything on that board that escaped Stanley's eyes. And he would report to the TUC, and then we will write the relevant minister, or we will write the cabinet and get certain things done. As I say, I don't know what details exist now, but I know that has been a long-held procedure, and I will be at a loss to find out if that was changed. I suspect it has not been changed, listening to Senator Lewis. So that's my comments on that. It's a significant departure from how these things have been constituted before, right? And it means that what you are having for the first time is a serious politicization of an institution that has an enormous amount of money, but which money does not belong to the cabinet of Grenada. It belongs to the workers, and you need to have its independence protected, because we have never suffered like, in Antigua there are times people can't receive their pension. They just don't have any money. This has never happened inside of our NIS. NIS has been the premier institution. You have never heard of any corruption inside of the NIS. You've never heard of misspending people's funds, etc., etc., etc. I remember once, that's to tell you how vigilant we were. There was an announcement on the radio that the NIS was sponsoring some carnival queen. And we immediately wrote the chairman of the board and pointed out that the law lays out how NIS money could be spent. And you cannot take workers' money and go and sponsor a carnival queen. And if you proceed, we will go to a court of law and get an injunction to stop you. Not because you see money there, you think you must spend it in any kind of way. I mean, we have been very, 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 and I mean, I have to congratulate the TUC, right? Over the years, we have been good policemen, right? And strange enough, the TUC has been calling on the government to follow the actual report. And it is the government, because they're afraid of political backlash, have not been doing what the actuaries have been calling us to do. Right? It's a very important institution for the workers in this country. And the day we begin to lose our independence is the day that organization is going to be starting to dismantle. I mean, look at the situation in Barbados. The loan portfolio is twice or more than in Grenada. Grenada has a very comfortable loan portfolio of the lendings that the TUC do to different institutions. I think in Grenada, government must be only about 10 or 11 or 12%, whereas the actuaries and other financial analysts and so on say you could go, I think, also up to high as 25% or 30%. But in Grenada, it's a very low amount. In other words, the debt held by the state and state institutions in the TUC is very low.
So,
in Barbados, is exceedingly high.
We're coming to the end of tonight's program, and I'd like to thank all of the viewers who have stuck with us throughout the night. Even with the little technical issues, they have been there because they really wanted to hear from you tonight. And I'm promising you that within the next week or so, we will have you on the program with a fully tested system this time, not a system we put on earlier today and then try to see if it works, with a fully operational system to have you on via video, or alternately to have you in the studio directly with us so you can hear the callers and so on. You've heard from this administration, the present administration. You've seen what they've been doing over the past few months. You've heard the plights of various workers. I mean, workers in Karaku sent home, not even given a hearing, not even given holiday pay. In some instances, not holiday pay, nothing. Just, this is a letter, go home. What are your expectations over the coming weeks, months, or years, if they last that long, of the NDC administration when it comes to workers and workers' rights? What do you foresee from the behavior you're seeing now? What do you foresee? Outside of a cabinet shuffle where we might lose the minister, what do you foresee?
Well, let me see. I mean, it's early days yet, huh? It's really early days at the moment. To say precisely how things are going to pan out. You are dealing with a group of exceedingly inexperienced youngsters who have had little or no political experience, and who stumbled upon governance by our own mistakes, right? But it is what it is. This is how democracy works. And I'm saying it is young days still, so I don't know if what we are seeing are green mistakes, meaning the mistakes made by green and inexperienced people. I don't know to what extent by the time we are within sight of the next general elections, which will be 2027, I do not know what the impact of having paid the pension would be, and if that would have sufficiently worn off, or even though there has been an affluction of time, remember every year people retire, and people who are in the service and so on will be in for their retirement, so that matter has been resolved and now is restored, right? What is the impact of that in a political sense? So, I mean, I hold the view that a substantial reason for our defeat had a lot to do with that fact and industrial relations climate at the time. I don't want to deal much of that in public. I think that belongs to a kind of different forum. So I'm saying it's kind of hard because there are a lot of dynamics at play here.
Mm-hmm.
In the 2023 elections, a whole set of dynamics were at play there. One, we gave the people too much time. Every government that has been returned in the COVID period has returned in a very short election campaign time. Right? So we gave them a sufficiency of time, more than time, in order to do that. So that's a factor there. The pension thing is another factor. I don't think that people felt convinced that when we say we would not appeal, people, I have analyzed this myself. People were making a distinction between not appealing and paying the pension. Right? And it's an important distinction. It's an important distinction, right? Not appealing and paying the pension is an important distinction. Mm-hmm. And we fail to make that distinction amongst ourselves. So that while we're saying that we were not appealing, people were saying, okay, you're not appealing, but you're in pain. And so people were not convinced, and that had its impact on the election. And then, like everything else in this world, material things, spiritual things, psychological things, yes. I mean, if you follow the principles of nuclear physics and of fission and of radioactivity, these some things remain radioactive for hundreds of thousands of years, but ultimately everything moves to a thing called steady state. Mm-hmm. Right? And that That's a whole dynamic in itself.
Yeah, the half-life decelerates downwards.
There's a kind of whole dynamic which they had to sit down and discuss and so on. So to cut a long story short, I've heard people predicting that these guys will fall within X months or so. Well, let's wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never understood on what basis what was the basis of that analysis. So I can't repeat something that I don't understand. If I don't understand, I tell you I don't understand. So I can't make a comment on whether or not they're gonna last 24 months, 36 months, 60 months. I don't know. Right? And as I grow older, life has taught me don't make a lot of them predictions into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the day Parliament was dissolved, which I think was the 16th of May, neither you nor I could have thought that we will be in the opposition from 15 seats to 0 to get only 6 seats, in which every single candidate of the New National Party got less votes today than we got in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And that is without exception.
Of course.
So, as I said, I can't make that projection, and I don't want to set people on these targets. We wait to see. There are a lot of challenges ahead.
But I was asking
and
though.
See how they do it.
I was asking though more along the lines of their agenda for workers. What are some of the things? Do you think workers will be benefiting? Are you seeing a trend towards more of the same, or are you seeing a sort of?
I have not seen. I have seen more slogans than. I mean, I don't know. All right. Take, for example, the environmental cleanup that has started. Quite frankly, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's a low-hanging fruit, right? It has an impact, a visual impact, because I live right from the Karani Boulevard, the Lagoon Park. And when I saw what was happening to the Lagoon Park, we allowing squatters to take over. And when I say squatters, I don't only mean the poor, because there's a big business that have taken over part of the park and make it a trailer park. And when I looked at the deterioration and I look at the dumping of the garbage and how unsightly that looks, and I'm reminded that every now and again, Oprah Winfrey's yacht with a helicopter comes and pull up right there. Just on the other side of us, after we had so much struggle to get the Lagoon Road clean up and so on, we allow squatters to go back inside there. We allow people to sell food, and they have no toilet facilities, no running water. They're selling food, and they have a pit latrine in the heart of town. I mean, what is becoming of us? I mean, anything goes. There is no public authority here that is enforcing regulations. People park and dump these cars all over the place. They open up wayside garages. I mean, if you look at the port, it was called the Port Highway. The Port Highway right now has been transformed into a one-lane place. And there's always a traffic jam there outside of your port. As a matter of fact, those buildings have now started to encroach on the playing field because they break the fence down. And people are releasing the grey water from whatever sink and thing they have into the Tantine playing field. I mean, there's no regulation. I mean, how could you be selling food to people and you have a pit latrine in tongue? And when you raise your eyebrow, you could see Oprah Winfrey yacht on the side there. All these derelict vehicles, every small side road. I went into a side road the other day and I saw there's a fire breakout. I don't know how the fire engine get in there. There is no public authority. For more than a year, I have been calling physical planning. A guy just set up an iterant mobile thing and dumped it right in the bottom of us here, just opposite Dr. Japal. Vagrants start living in it. And we can't get any. So what I'm saying, there are some low-hanging fruit, right? And to be quite frank, they're making quite a stir. I mean, you can't have the heart of your tourism belt in the state in which it is. You have squatters now coming over the Montrouge Range. But how do you have Sir Royston Hopkins Speyside Beach, right? Where you pay $4,000-5,000 US a night, and when you look up on a hill, you see a guy with an old rickety shop, a shack, right? Occupying the most scenic view on the greatest piece of real estate. So there's no planning, there's no, I mean, come on. We are just slowly destroying our potential. I mean, look at Van Dyke. No, you can't walk in town. No, in the last few weeks, all the sidewalks in town by and large have been taken over by vendors. No, we have to make provisions, right, for less advantaged in our society. There's no doubt about that. But we have to understand that the nature and character of the economy has gone through some unplanned changes, right? With the demise of the plantocracy and the plantation economy, and the demise of agriculture because of the changes in trade. We no longer, international trade has changed. The international division of labor has changed. I know we have this nostalgia about agriculture and so on. But the changes meant it has disrupted the economic livelihood of hundreds, thousands of Ghanaians. So everybody now is selling something because they can't find work. And even if they find work, they belong to the class of working poor, meaning they're working, but the standard of living is not much better than the poor people in the countryside who have no work at all. So you call them the urban working poor, right? But look at what is happening. All our traditional buildings that was owned by Grenadians are now sold to people who have come here. And our local entrepreneurs now have to do their sales out of a rickety pallet wooden crate. There are people selling food for people in Grenada, and the food is on the ground. This is 2023. This is 2023. You walk by the market on the lower part of Melville Street, and they have people with a crocodile bag, as we call it, on the ground with vegetables there that you must come and buy and go home with in 2023.
Indeed.
We make no provision, right? So people, so it's, you know, and therefore what develops is a slumming mentality, a slumming culture. And you've seen it all over the place. This is incompatible to a service industry like tourism. So the state has to invest in this infrastructure and to lift the people up culturally from a mentality of poverty and slumming. And the only how you can do that, the St. George's Market Square, where our parents were sold and bought, is no longer adequate to meet the needs of a market. And no matter which way you cut it, it won't be able to. So it means we have to reclaim land. And we have to do something to give our people dignity. You can't have people having food on the ground or old rickety piece of pallet that they pick up from somewhere in a dump. That is incompatible to the opportunities of a service industry. And I want to drive home to your mind's eye what I mean when I say that. Look at what the silver sands have become. Right? Look at the cost of the villas in the silver sands. Look at its design portfolio. And then step out in the street and look at the hills. The two are incompatible. And therefore, quickly, speedily, we have to move to planning. Physical planning has to be physical planning. It has to be led by somebody who is a qualified town and country planner, not a technician. Right? And as I said, we have to do, because all of the physical infrastructure have been bought up by foreigners, people who have come here. And our small entrepreneurs either had to sell out at the back of a vehicle or sell on some rickety crates.
Senator Humphrey, we'd have to end it here. Any final words you'd like to leave with the listeners tonight? And I can tell you that from the start of the program to now, they have kept constant. You have not been one of the guests who might, somebody listening and afterwards they just gone after 2 seconds. They have stayed with us for the entire time. I've actually gone a little over half hour my usual time, but I had to give back some time to the folks here, and I promise you that within the next week we definitely will bring you on again. Any final words for tonight you would like to leave with the listeners?
Well, I would just like to repeat that for those of you who have been treated unfairly in your jobs, there are possibilities for help, but help will only come to those who make known that they need help. So I could be contacted. We have a whole slew of different individuals, people who supported the party, and so on. You can contact them, contact the party secretariat. By the way, my number is 405-8533. There's always been a public number. I had that since I've been leading the union many, many years. Never changed my phone. I could be reached on that. As I said, I have some cases right now I'm fighting in the Ministry of Labor. Only this afternoon I was speaking to the Deputy Labor Commissioner about the need to get me those cases scheduled, right? And so let's see where that goes from here, right? Let's see where that goes from here. Okay. Well, Sheldon, it was nice talking to you after such a long break. And anytime you think you need my views,
I do.
Well, you know how to get me. We're always in contact.
Yes, and I need to tell you though, the comments have been very, very positive. In fact, I haven't seen a negative comment thus far, both on YouTube and on Facebook from the hundreds listening via both platforms. And they are saying it has been an excellent conversation and you have provided a lot of clarity in relation to several issues that people had not understood before. Be it union issues and workers' rights, or be it the NIS, the listeners, the viewers of tonight's program are very thankful for you for the clarity that you have provided. And we need to see you very soon. So thank you so very much, sir.
All right, and thank you to your listeners. Have a good night and all the best.
All right, thank you very much.
Take care. Yeah.
Yes, folks, we were speaking there with, and I still say it this way, Senator the Honorable, yes, Senator the Honorable Chester Arlington Humphrey. All right. And he has provided a lot of clarity there. Yeah, that NIS thing, I want to dig into that in our conversation soon again with Senator Humphrey. I want to dig into that NIS thing because I'm telling you, in my view, I find it look as though if you set up a committee that has the responsibility to deal with the finances, in other words, how NIS is spending their money, and you do that, and you exclude the people who have been the safeguard in protecting the money in NIS, I have concerns there. Tomorrow, folks, we're listening in. We're trying to find out what's going on at Parliament tomorrow. We're going to be viewing. I am not sure if Talking Points is going to be coming on tomorrow with the Parliament sitting. We'll attempt to do it. I'm not positive. Otherwise, we will provide a link where you can view the Parliament sitting tomorrow. The New National Party is calling on the present administration to withdraw that bill, the data protection bill. Yeah? But let's see what obtains tomorrow for the Parliament sitting. My name is Sheldon Scott. I am heading out of here. And whatever you say and do it safe and secure. Want to be speaking to and with you and not about you. And you see me? I holding my car keys close because I all kind of thing going on. We will talk about that one tonight, but I holding my car keys close. We ain't taking no chance with nobody kind of thing I hear going on. The people car does just sell without them knowing. All kind of thing does take place. Holding my car keys close. You see them here? Yeah, holding my car keys close. I ain't taking chance, yeah.
Friday night in a fete, I jump up until I sweat because I had nobody to dance the soca with me. My girlfriend went away for a short holiday, so I decided tonight I go make a play. I was dancing to one of my compositions. Oh God, that was played by my own local village band. Okay. When this young lady